Welcome, everybody, to my podcast, Senior to Seniors, where I dive into stories of seniors, explore their unique experiences. I discuss the real issues facing seniors today, and I introduce you to those assisting seniors in their senior journey. I have the privilege to talk with some of the most interesting people in the world impacting the senior community today. And today is one of those days. We'll be talking to a very, very interesting person. And so, Robert, let me introduce you first of all. Um, Robert Christophor Coppes is a scientist and retired financier. He studied NDEs for decades and has lectured on this topic in the US and in Europe. His latest book on NDEs is called Impressions of Near Death Experiences. And it is, in fact, a compilation of hundreds of quotes from experiencers. He considers them the best tutors in life. Previous books on NDEs are Essence of Religions and Messages from the Light. He never had the intention to write books, but the death of his brother changed that. He strongly felt that he had to write this extraordinary story in a specific way, and he's done just that. He had a flash of inspiration during the long ride back home after the funeral. And while driving, the structure came to him, the chapters, the contents, the dialogues, the prologue, and the epilogue. The book that resulted was translated in English, Michael's Cloak. He also wrote a book based on a war diary of his uncle who became an American citizen, a teenage boy in war-torn Holland. Coppes lives in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And today in Amsterdam, I checked, Robert, it's 73 degrees and you have clear skies and it's sunny. So I always check that out because it appears that your disposition will be good because you're not under a cloak of darkness and rain and all of that stuff. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much for your wonderful introduction. It's very extensive and complete. And you're right, it's nice weather here. I'm looking out of the window and it's clear skies
Well,
and warm.
let's enjoy the weather today. So the first question I have to ask you is tell us about your journey. It's your childhood. I've known a lot of people. We all have known a lot of people. I've known people from all professions, scientists, teachers, people who work in hard labor and in shops and all kinds of things. But I've never met somebody who has really dug into NDEs, into near death experiences, and found that as their journey. So tell us about your childhood and how you grew up to develop this interest.
Well, I started my life in Venezuela. So actually, I'm also an American, if you want to put it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we moved to Iran, a place that is being bombed at the moment.
Right.
It's in the middle of a war, but then we went to my home country, the Netherlands, where I started my education, and I did economics, and I succeeded in doing that study, and then I went into banking, which I loved really. But at the same time, I was very much interested in afterlife issues. I was raised Roman Catholic and I had my education there, but that didn't sync with me well because of the purgatory and the hell part that I never thought was quite right.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I read Raymond Moody's book on near-death experiences, that's the guy, the medical doctor who coined the term near-death experiences. I read in somewhere in the book that there was someone who had a life review, and in the life review, she saw her whole life. That's typically what a life review does. It shows your whole life in detail, in very great detail, but in such detail that you can also see it from the other side. So it's not only your own point of view, but it's also the point of view of the people that you interact with. And she said, I was not judged. There was no judgment at all. And that stuck with me. And I thought that that's really correct. And so I started looking into NDEs and saw that there was a lot of research being done. And a part of the research is very important because NDEs are really very nice stories. It's like fairy tales, but they remain fairy tales if you don't have any um, uh, indications that these stories are based on reality. And there is a lot of information out there from people who have had such an experience and have these or details of the experience confirmed independently by others. And those are the really important experiences or stories because they give some kind of circumstantial evidence that near-death experiences are not just fairy tales, they are based
Hmm.
in reality. It's
Hmm.
very interesting.
So are there any, and I didn't see in your book because you have, this says 100 different interviews with people or stories of people. Are there any near-death experiences that have not turned out to be a joyful experience, a great experience, one filled with love? And are there nightmarish kind of
Yeah.
near-death experiences that you've heard and heard people talk about?
You know, the vast number of NDEs are uh, very nice. They're blissful and there's so much love in them. But a subset of the NDEs, and it's difficult to put a number on them. It varies. Research varies between 5% to 20% have a less nice character, and
Okay.
only a very small subset of those are really hellish. So there are hellish near-death experiences. Having said that, now I need to explain something because I don't want your listeners to sit there in horror and think
Hmm. Hmm.
that that
Hmm.
is the place that they will go. It is my firm belief, after doing a lot of research and listening to so many people, that no one will remain in that kind of situation forever. So hell, like it's portrayed in the Roman Catholic Church, is, for me, it's out of the window.
Yes.
It's nonsense, total nonsense. Also, purgatory is not there because there are a few things that I need to explain now. The fact is, and that is researched well, you cannot say that people who've had a bad life or who have done bad things will have a distressing NDE, and that people who have had an average life or a good life will have a blissful one. There are cases where there were people that are really have done really terrible things, have had a
Yes.
blissful NDE, and there are stories of people who've had just a common life like any one of us with mistakes. We all make mistakes, but nothing really grave. And they have experienced distressing elements or even a distressing NDE. So after this conclusion, we need to find another reason why distressing NDEs are there. And a very good theory, and it's difficult to confirm that theory is, the theory is that these distressing elements that you get in your NDE are based on the collective conscious. They pop up from the collective conscious. That is a term coined by Carl Gustav Jung, a psychiatrist from Switzerland.
Hmm.
Uh, or they come back, they pop up because of your own history, and there is very good evidence, circumstantial evidence again, that this is correct. I spoke with a number of people, and other people have researched it more in depth, that it could be very well be the case that because of your own history, because of the things you encountered, or the fear you have for hell and purgatory, leads to a first phase where you might have distressing elements in it. So, and but there are also NDEers who explicitly hear during their experience that there is no hell and no purgatory. I spoke with one person and I asked him deliberately what he thought about this, and he said that he really heard on the other side during his near death experience that there
Mhm.
is no hell and no purgatory. And there are many more of these NDEs who have said such a thing. We all go home. That's another quote in my book from one of the NDEs. And home is not where you live at this moment, it is the place where we all originate from. That's what all NDEs say. That's home. That's the other worldly environment where they have been, and they know that this is real. They are so convinced that it's real, and that we will all go there, and they call that the home that we
Yeah.
have.
Well, so many of the stories are alike. They have so many similarities with them. And it seems like, when I was reading your book, so many people seem to view their death, their near death experience from above, from the ceiling. It seems like
Yes.
so many people go above and look down upon themselves. One of the stories was, I believe, a woman who, was looking down upon herself, and she was wondering, why am I here? Who am I looking at? And then she realized the pajamas that the person was wearing were hers, you
Yes.
know. And so, do you find that those are mostly similar stories, and that's why NDEs connect so many people and connect to us and are interesting to us?
Well, you say that there are a lot of similarities. There are some similarities, but there are also differences. And
Mhm.
I must say that every NDE is different from another. The stories are wonderful to listen to or to read, and I advise people to read those stories. It's really amazing. But
Mhm.
they are different. People, the point is that on the other side, things are totally different from where we are here. Uh, we don't have words enough or concepts enough to explain what people experience on the other side. So that must lead to different stories. And even if you
Mhm.
ask people, tell you a story, they will always say, "Well, this is not complete. I cannot give you the whole story." And but you're right. Most people, when they leave, or many people, I should say, not most, many
Many,
people
yeah.
who leave their body will look down upon their body, and that's interesting because the first thing is that they don't recognize themselves because you see yourself from a totally different angle. When we see a photo, it's flat. When we see our image in the mirror, it's flat. But you have some idea of how you look like. But if you look at yourself from a total different angle, imagine you're standing in an elevator in a hotel. You know those elevators that have all the mirrors everywhere. You see your
Sure.
backside.
Hmm.
That's not. Every time I see myself, I think, "Oh yeah, now I know it's myself." But the first time I thought, "Is that me?" That's the
Hmm.
same thing would happen to people with an NDE. They see themselves and they don't recognize themselves until, in this case, the woman recognized her nightgown and she thought, "Oh, that it must be me."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's really strange for them to really come to that conclusion.
Sure. So, why is it that the death of your brother, as you said, changed you and really changed you? How did it change you? How did the death of your brother change you?
Well, first of all, I never had the intention to write a book about this. But when I was sitting in the car, it was as if it was downloaded into me. It was so strange. I cannot explain that. And then when I had my last interview, which was because he went to Japan, I went to Japan as well to visit this organization. And then when I was done with the interview, I was in a square somewhere, and something happened there as well that I really felt him very nearby. I felt his presence, and it was so real that I couldn't. I knew there was something more. So I always had the feeling that there was something more, that we live on. Death is not the end. So there with the book, I had this download episode, and I had the closing episode, and that really was important for me. And before that, I already discussed with my brother near-death experiences, and that was in the 90s. So the near-death experiences, the first book by Raymond Moody was published in 76, so it was fairly new, I would say. And and that is why I wrote the book, because I discussed it with him. And then I decided to investigate, or to research rather, near death experiences. And I noticed there was a great research done in my own country. I didn't know about that.
Mm.
And it was copied. It was the first prospective research, and that's a difficult term, but it means that it can be reproduced. You can do the research somewhere else, and it's being reproduced in the US and in the UK with a similar outcomes. And it ruled out that near-death experiences are caused by lack of oxygen, or by substances that are created in a dying brain.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
some other things, some other items were excluded as a cause for near-death experiences. And that is a very important research. So, but the question is still out, what does um, uh, what makes an NDE? How do you get an NDE? And since there are so many veridical observations, and those are verifiable out-of-body observations, I think it is real. This gives you circumstantial evidence that NDEs are real. And to explain veridical observations, you have two categories, in my opinion. The first one is where someone leaves his or her body and sees the environment where the body is, like in a hospital or near a crash site, and then observes some things like a tennis shoe, which is a real example, or observes what the doctors are doing, or what they say, or how the procedure goes, which is different from other procedures. And they're able to tell that later, and that is being confirmed by the doctors. That shows you that your consciousness can be outside of your body. It still does not give some evidence that that there is an afterlife, that there is an otherworldly environment where we go to. And that is the second category of veridical observations, where people go to this otherworldly environment, get some information there,
Mhm.
come back again to their body, and then it plays out that this information was perfectly correct. In my book, just to flesh out my book for the readers, or the listeners, in my book there are a number of those veridical observations mentioned, and I'll give you just one, if you have the time
Of
to
course,
listen to me.
please. Mhm,
Because there was this woman living in a little town in the United States somewhere, and she had a medical problem. So she had to go to the hospital. There was surgery done. She survived that, but then she had some real problem, which triggered the near-death experience. During her near-death experience, she was able to float through the hospital and see the relatives there. But then the next thing is she went to this otherworldly environment. So she left the earth plane, or how do you want to put it like that, and she went to this heavenly-like environment where she met deceased relatives. And one person, one man comes towards her and presents himself as a baby boy, and tells her, "I'm your brother. Next, when you go back again, you have to go back again. When you go back again, tell your father about me, and remember how I look like, and that I spoke with you." And that is what she did. She went when she was resuscitated again. She went to her father later when she was good enough to leave the hospital, and she asked him, and it proved to be correct that the father and had a son, so that was her brother, but who died very soon after it was born. And they never spoke about the brother, about this son. And this is the first time that she heard about this. And there's another thing in her NDE that it was mentioned very clearly to her that she had to speak with Raymond Moody, who was not famous at the moment,
Hmm.
and to tell her story, what she had met, what she had experienced there in this heavenly environment. And she said, "How do I meet this Raymond Moody? Because I don't know where he is." And then the answer was, "Just wait, you will see him." And then she is resuscitated. She leads her life again. And years later, Raymond Moody moves to that little village, and then his son goes around on Halloween, around for the doors, and she saw him at the door, and she knew all the children in the neighborhood, but she didn't know him. And then she asked him, "Where do you come from? What is your name?" And then he says, very proudly, he says, "I am Raymond Avery Moody." And then in her head, there was the voice again, like, "This is the moment. This is now." And then she looks up to the mother and she asks the mother, "I need to talk to your husband." And that was when she started to speak with Raymond. And he is, and her story is in his book also.
Hmm.
But these kind of stories give you, and because they are independently verified, they give you circumstantial evidence that this is real.
Yeah. So it seems like in my notes I wrote down that that NDEers say that we are all interconnected. Um,
Yeah.
Talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, that's, there are two things that stand out for me when I research NDEs. The first one is that most people, or actually almost all of them, speak about unconditional love. And
Hmm.
you need to really understand what that means. It's unconditional, there's no conditions. It means that whatever you do or whoever you are, you will meet this unconditional love. And it goes very far. So if you stretch it to the extremes, anyone, just name a few people that you don't like. It could be your
Hmm.
neighbor or some politicians or historians, historical figures. Everyone will meet this kind of love. It's difficult to wrap your head around, but this is what I understand from NDEers. The other thing is that we are all very closely interconnected. So you think that you are on the other side of the ocean and I'm sitting here, and
Hmm.
your listeners are also scattered around, but we all are connected. And we don't see that now, but we will see it when we leave our body, because then we leave this confined thing that we own, the body, and we will become the real thing that we are. And that is spirit, or that is some other kind of dimension kind of thing. And we will notice that we have always and all along been connected with everyone, or maybe even what some people say in my book. The quotes are so also that people say we are one. There's
Hmm.
only one, there's one source, and we all originate from that. So if you want to, I always compare that to Christianity or to Roman Catholicism, where I originate from. God
Hmm.
is someone else. He is always a him. He is sitting on a throne, and he's going to decide if you have been good or bad. That's not the case. That's not how I understand it from NDEers. We all are the source. We are a part of the source. So if I, that's why it's from life reviews. I understand very well that you can feel what an other has felt as if you are the other, because we are one. There is such an interconnection that it's possible that I can feel what I did to someone as if I am that other person.
Hmm.
Now, that gives everyone a very important notion, because whatever you do to someone else, you will have to bear the pain or the joy that it brings to someone else also. And
Right.
that is why I also think of when I listen to the news and see the bombings in the Middle East,
Yeah.
either from the Israelis on the Palestinians, or the other way around, or the Russians and the Ukrainians, or the Somalians, or you name it, whenever. Everyone, every single one of those will feel the consequences as if you are the other.
Yeah.
So stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It isn't it too bad we can't feel that in a different way now?
No,
You know.
but that's why I hope that near death experiences, when the information gets out, that more people will understand that we all will know that's the consequence, that we will feel what we do to others as if we are the others. And having said that, I must say also that there is no judgment. So that is how I understand it from near death experiences. There is no judgment, but nevertheless, you will not really feel very happy when you have seen that you have
Mm-hmm.
harmed others, because you
Mm-hmm.
feel it. What the other, it's when you feel it from the other side, it is not as a punishment, but it's more to understand your place in the world. That's what I understand from NDEs. It has to do with understanding the world, your place in the world, the place of the others in the world, where they came from, why they did what they did, why you did what you did. There's everything we do leads up to something. We have free choice,
Mm-hmm.
and we use free choice to arrive at this point where we are now, with these struggles that I mentioned, these wars.
Yeah.
We can change that around again, but it can be done also on a small scale. That's another thing that I understand from Andy is when we do something nice to someone else nowadays, just a smile or a nice gesture, or you name it, you think of nice things you can do that doesn't harm you, that doesn't cost you a lot of money, or that doesn't cost you a lot of effort.
Mm-hmm.
But those little things, they ring out through universe. They do something, and they will eventually lead to a better life for everyone.
Sure. Just kindness, right?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
just kindness. So with the people that you've interviewed, what are the after effects? What have you seen as the after effects of a near death experience?
After effects are really interesting. It's well, most important after effect is that people lose their fear of death, because they really have seen that there is this other side that they will go to. We all go to that other side. So that is really outstanding, that this after effect is there. And there are other after effects that people sometimes become mediumistic. They know things in the future, how things will play out. Sometimes they have contact with deceased people. That ability arises in them. Um, they are very sensitive. They become very sensitive. Another really interesting thing is that they become less interested in money and power, because they know that that's not what is important.
Yeah.
The important things are uh, being sociable, being nice to others, having contacts with others, but not only with people, but also with nature. Being good to your garden, or to the environment, or to animals, that's very important.
Mm.
It also gives yeah, good good vibrations.
Yeah.
And there are very strange after effects that are really reported many times, like interference with electricity. Some people say that they cannot wear electronic watches because they stop, and when they take them off, then they start again.
Mm.
Sometimes computers fail, and I always make the joke that I'm afraid to be in an airplane where there are so many NDEs.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm sure that that will go right. But those kind of after effects are reported as well.
So I'm interested, and I don't want to miss something here, and maybe it's just me, but an NDE has gone to the edge, so to speak, as I see it, my words, not yours,
Yes.
have gone to the edge, but they haven't gone over the edge. So how can we or they or anyone be sure that the wonderful near-death experience that many have experienced with of love and compassion and understanding and all of that, how can we be sure, if we can be, that the next step, death, is going to be a good experience? You said that, most will learn from this that not to be scared. Well,
Yes.
okay, I get that. And from reading what I've read and listening to other people, I think I could approach this that I'm not scared of a near-death experience, but that still doesn't verify what's going to be on the next the next plane. Then, so can you explain that or what you've gathered from your study?
Yeah, of course. The thing is that one of the statistics is that almost all near-death experiencers are not afraid of death anymore. So that already tells you something. Then there are the critical observations, and I'm talking about the second category where people have seen things in the otherworldly environment that can be confirmed later on as being true. So that should mean that the otherworldly environment is there, or that this information is there. Now, as to your remark that it's you only come to the edge. You don't
Yes.
know what happens if you go through the edge. That's interesting. There's so many people that have an NDE that see a border like a fence or a curtain or a stream or a door, and they are not allowed to go through it because once they go through it, they cannot come back again. So the question remains, that's what you say, what happens if you go beyond that little stream or you go through that door? Uh, we don't know. But why wouldn't we just be happy with the information that we have, like the vertical observations of the second category, as I define them? I think that's important. And for
Yeah.
me, I haven't had an NDE myself, but for me, after having discussed this with so many people and interviewed them, I'm also convinced that it's real. And I also felt that when I was a child, when you really go back to your childhood and you can think of that kind of feelings,
Hmm.
um, it was already there that I had no fear. That's why I always thought that the whole idea from Roman Catholicism of hell and purgatory was wrong. And then there was this book of Raymond Moody that confirmed that for me.
Yeah.
And now with my study, all the vertical observations confirm that to me. So I'm convinced.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things I had written down in preparing for this and in my notes is that it appears that you didn't set out to chase death in your study and what you're doing. You set out to listen to those who came back from death. And how has that changed you? Um, Apparently, it's clear that you're not scared of this, but in what other ways has it changed you?
It's an interesting question. The thing is that people that have not had an NDE but that are involved so much with near-death experiencers say they also get this benign virus from the near-death experiencers, and they become more or less the same. And I would just recommend your listeners to read a lot about this because it really gives you good information and good vibes for your current life. Studying death in this way doesn't make you liking death or so. No, it makes you embrace life more. And that's also what near-death experiencers normally have. They would love to go back to that otherworldly environment, but they know they have to be here. There's a reason for every single one of us to be here. We are all very important, and we need to be here for the things that we are here for. It doesn't have to be like so much importance as being the king of the Netherlands or the president of the United States. It can be just being a mother to your children or a child to your parents or being in your company doing stuff that is important for the society or things like that. And you have multiple reasons to be here. We are all here with reasons, at least one.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's and for me, the things that I learned from NDEs is that the small things count. One of the NDEs made that very clear by saying that she had her second life review, and in her second life review, she saw how she could have made a difference in people's lives by just smiling to them or being nice to them in the line at the cashier. And because she saw one of these guys, if she would have smiled to this guy, he would have gone home not being so angry and not nice to his wife and children. That effect would be there. So that's what I mean with small things you do, like smiling or being nice or just very small gestures of kindness. They can make a difference in people's lives.
Sure, sure they can. Um, so I'm interested. What's the most bizarre story of the people that you interviewed? And my understanding is in your book of these interviews, you actually met with about, I think, 75, 80% of the people personally yourself. What what is the one most bizarre story that's either in your book or not in your book uh, that you've experienced in your study of NDEs? Can you think
Ooh,
of one?
that's um, one, well, bizarre, I wouldn't maybe not mention it like that, but I spoke with a woman who tried to commit suicide,
Okay.
and she was married with an Austrian, and that marriage didn't go well. She wanted to just exit life, and she had a very nice encounter with the light. And when she came back again, she was lying on her bed, and then suddenly she saw, yeah, it sounds maybe, yeah, it sounds strange, but many people do see Jesus Christ in their NDE. And having said
Hmm.
that, I must also mention that also other deities from other religions are
Okay.
seen. So
All right.
Jesus is not the only one, but she
Hmm.
saw Jesus standing there, and Jesus said to her, um, "Don't waste your life thinking you are not loved." And that, for me, that was not bizarre, but it was so intricate that this line was there because she said she was an English teacher in Austria, and she said, I analyzed that line so many times, and she said, apparently there is a life you can waste, because that was what it said, don't waste your life.
Hmm.
And the other thing is thinking that you're not loved, because she said we are all loved. So that is important,
Yeah.
and that is one of the things that stuck out. But there are so many interesting stories in my book that I can also talk about others, but it
Yeah.
it would overrun your time perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I believe that we were all put here for purpose, all of us,
Absolutely.
regardless of which religion or, what you study. We're all here for purpose. Some of us don't realize that until maybe it's too late, but we all have something to contribute. And as you said, a lot of that might just be as simple as love and compassion for others. So what does all of this mean? I mean, what are the main lessons that we should take from this very brief time that we've spent together? And for those who are listening today, because they were kind of interested and they saw the title and what the heck, they had 45, 50 minutes to spend to listen to something on a podcast. But what would be the main lesson that you would want people to know from our conversation today?
For me, the main lesson was, and I would say that that was the main lesson for others, would say, is that we are all loved unconditionally, that we all go to the other side. There is no one excluded, and that we are all uh, very closely connected in such a way that we have to realize what we do during the day, that because we will be able to feel what that is from the other side. And so the best thing to do is to bring joy and bring nice things. But so things that, as I said before, the wars that are going on, but also the strife in your country, and there's also strife in Europe. You will feel it from both sides. You will feel what it does to others, as if you are the other. There's no difference between you and the others.
Yeah, one of the connections like that you mentioned is there is I'm a former musician, and there's a musician in Ukraine that
Yes,
was playing music with a Russian band. And of course, this all separated them.
yes.
And so now he'll do Zoom calls, but he'll do some videos and so forth. And what you realize, or what I've realized just from him, is that he's no different than me. I mean, his
Mm.
experience is different. He has different beliefs, and he came from a different upbringing and so forth. But we're all the same.
Yeah.
So tell me what's next for you? You've written several books. You're an accomplished author. You're a scientist. You've done lots of things in your life. What's next for you? What do you see that you want to do next that will change the world in the way that you can?
Well, currently I'm board member of the International Association for Near-Death Studies, and that's an organization worldwide, but it's in the US. And I can only ask people, if you are interested, go to the INS website. It's INDE, INS International Association for Near-Death Studies.org, but then the abbreviation. And you will find a lot of information there. We have a conference in Chicago in August, end of August, Labor Day, I think it's with you. And and there is also a lot of other, you can join groups, other kinds of things there. It's very interesting to just go to their website and feel all these things. And I'm very busy with that. So that's what I'm busy with currently.
Yeah, and for those that do go to that site, they'll find that you've spoken there before. The organization I know looks to you for your expert opinion and the study that you've done, and so it's an interesting organization. Uh, so I want to remind people how to get a hold of you. Uh, and of course, why don't you just tell us what's the best way for someone to connect for you? First of all, your book, uh, which is Impressions of Near-Death Experiences, quotations from over 100 experiencers. There it is,
It's,
right in front
it's
of
behind you as well.
it is, and it's available on Amazon. I have the Kindle version. Is it also available in print as well?
Yes, and there is also an audio version. but that's recent.
Okay.
And people can reach me and send me an email or fill out a form on my website, which is www.bobcoppes.com.
Okay. So we'll be able to get a hold of you. I've got to thank you for spending about 50 minutes with me all the way from Amsterdam. Hopefully the sun is still shining and it's warming up, and you're going to have a great day.
The sun sets here around 11 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for being with me, and
Thank you for having me.
thank you to all the viewers. And if you're so disposed, please subscribe to this podcast, like it, and we'll keep this going. And again, Robert Christophor Coppes, thank you so much for being with us. It was a great time. Thank you.